Welcome to the Google Classroom End of Year Cleanup in GEG Pennsylvania. My name is Judy Keller, and I'm a co-leader of GEG Pennsylvania. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. But let's get started. So let's talk about our end of the year Google Classroom cleanup. So we're going to get started here, and let's just dive right in. So let's start with end of the year reflection. We'll be covering returning all Google Classroom documents, hiding and deleting your Google Calendar, organizing your classroom folder, copying your classroom, and finally archiving your existing classroom. So end of the year reflection. What worked for you in your classroom? Think about what really worked in your classroom that you want to reuse next year. What didn't work in your classroom? Do you need to change your topics? Would you like to organize it a little differently? This is the time to think about that because you're not going to be thinking about that when you come back to school in August and are trying to get ready. So right now's the time to take down the notes, do your end of year reflection so you're prepared to start the new year. What are your goals for your next year's classroom? And any other notes that you might have. So just jot those down, take a minute or so and jot those down for yourself so that you have them when you're setting everything up when the new year starts. Let's get into the classroom piece. So, returning all Google Classroom documents. So your students have turned their work into you, but have you returned their work back to them? It's really important to return all student work because if the students cannot access their files that they've turned into you unless their work is returned to them. So if they want to reflect back on something that they studied in your class, they won't have access to those documents that they completed in your classroom if you don't return them. So to return them is really pretty simple. You'll go to the Grades tab in your classroom. Then you're going to look for work that is marked turned in. So anything that is titled turned in has not been returned to the student yet. So you're going to go to the three dots underneath that assignment. You're going to click on the three dots next to the name of the assignment, and you're going to select Return All. Once the work has been returned to the students, it's marked with a check mark. So let's double check and make sure all your assignments are returned before moving on with your Google Classroom cleanup. Here's a little step-by-step of how we can do that. So you're going to begin by selecting the Grades tab. Then you're going to go to the assignment, click on the three dots next to the assignment name, select Return All, and then return them all again. So you're going to click Return one more time. And then once the work is returned, you'll get a check mark in the column underneath the assignment. Next is the classroom calendar. So you can either hide your calendar or delete the calendar. So if you think you might use it again, we can talk about hiding it. If you don't think you're ever going to use it again, you can delete it. So let's get into that. So go to your calendar and open up your calendar and then you'll see your Google Classroom calendar. And you're going to go ahead and click on the three dots beside it. Once you click on the three dots, you'll go to the settings and you'll select Hide from List. Once you hide it from the list, it is simply hidden. You can always open it up again if you need to, but it's just hidden from your list in your calendar. To delete your classroom, you're going to basically follow the same type of thing by clicking the three dots beside the calendar name, go to the settings and sharing, and move all the way to the bottom of the settings. And at the very bottom, you can select delete. Now, once you delete the calendar, it's permanently deleted for you. There's no going back from this. So now you've either hidden your calendar or deleted your calendar. Let's talk about your classroom folder. You don't want to delete your Google Classroom folder. And I'm just telling you, this will create a mess, and you don't want to create that mess. So don't delete your folder. We're going to organize your classroom folder. So to organize your classroom folder, place your current classroom folders into a school year folder. So let's create a folder for the 24-25 classrooms. And then we are going to move your current folders for your Google Classrooms into that 24-25 classroom folder. Optionally, you can color code your folders with a subject or year. Now, you can always go back to those folders later. You may never find a reason to go back, but deleting it, I'm telling you, will cause you a lot of problems. So don't delete that. Let's talk now about copying your classroom. So when you copy your classroom, there are certain items that will copy and there are some items that won't. So let's talk about what items will copy. So your title, section, description, course subject, topics, classwork, and your grading system. So those will copy over into your new classroom. All your assignments will save as drafts in your Google Classroom, your new one. So your students won't see those assignments until you actually assign them. Items that don't copy: teacher announcements, deleted classwork items. So if you deleted an assignment, it's not going to show up in there. Students and co-teachers, student posts, attachments that you don't have permission to copy, and Google Site files. Those all will not copy over to your new classroom. So to copy your classroom, you're going to go to your main Google Classroom page, and I call these the tiles. So you're going to go to the tiles and click on the three dots. So when you click on the three dots, you're going to see that copy. If you don't see copy, then you're not a teacher in the class. So you're going to click on copy. Once you click on copy the class, you're going to have the name of your class, but it's going to show up as copy of. And this is where you can go ahead and rename your class for next year. So I could go ahead and rename this to 25-26 and my class name. I can add the section, the subject, the room number. Those are optional. You definitely have to add your classroom name. Now, while the classroom copies your class, you can leave the page and complete other work. When copying finishes, you'll get an email notification. And copying, depending on the size of your class, can take hours or it can take days. After your classroom copy is completed, you're ready to archive your class. So your class is archived for all teachers and students in the class. Once a class has been archived, the class is no longer appearing on your classwork page or classroom page where the tiles are. So teachers and co-teachers can archive a class. So if you're a co-teacher, make sure that you check with the other teacher before archiving the class. Because if you archive it for yourself, you're also archiving it for them at the same time. So if you're a co-teacher, I would stay away from archiving. I would reach out to the teacher and ask them if they're archiving it. If they're not archiving it, you can ask them to remove you as a teacher in that course, and then you won't see it. Only the primary teacher has the ability to delete a class permanently. Important to note, once you delete a Google Classroom, when it's deleted, not archived. Archived is fine. You can always go back and restore that. But a deleted classroom can never be restored. Students cannot archive or delete a class. So what happens to an archived class? It's placed in a separate area to preserve the classroom materials, the student work, and the posts. You won't see it active on your class page. You and your students can view an archived class. So to use the class again, you'll have to restore it. You and your students can still access any class materials in the drive. It does not have to be an active class. This includes any attachments or assignments or other student work. That all remains within the Google Drive itself. The classroom calendar remains in your Google Calendar and in your students' calendars, but if you no longer need the class, you can remove its calendar from view, or you can delete it permanently. Note that an archived class stays in classroom until you delete it. That's why an archived class calendar still shows in your Google Calendar. So the end of the school year is coming up, and I know you're excited to take off and have your summer off, but just think about cleaning up your classroom now, making notes about what you want to change in your Google Classroom, and then get started with your summer vacation. So I have the GEG Pennsylvania website QR code in the top, and also the link is posted at the bottom. If you'd like to become a member of GEG, you don't have to be a certified Google trainer or educator. Any educator is welcome to be part of a GEG. So we would love to have you as part of GEG Pennsylvania. Simply go to the website and ask to join our Google group. Here's the QR code to the Google group, but it's also located on the GEG Pennsylvania website. I hope you got some important information about cleaning up your Google Classroom, and I hope you enjoy your summer. Thanks for watching.